Good morning, students. The next topic in Islamiyat is the Battle of Hunain. Again, this is very important question as far as Islamiyat syllabus is concerned. So concentrate yourself. We are going to start. After the conquest of Makkah, the Muslim stayed in city for 15 days. They were thankful to Almighty for this great favor and happy for their bloodless entry into the Kaaba. Bilal would announce the prayer call, and multitudes of the people happily congregated in the sacred compound of the Baitullah, that is the house of Allah. Wherever the Prophet ﷺ went in Makkah or in the environs, he ﷺ was always accompanied by the Muhajirin and Ansar. When the Muhajirin went to their abandoned homes, they were as happy to meet the occupiers of the house as the occupiers were to meet the erstwhile owners of the property, and rejoiced that the conquest of Makkah had led to their enlightenment. The conquest of Makkah was a great triumph of the Islam. The Muslims gained the greatest benefits from this victory. The prestige and the awe of the Muslims spread far and wide due to this triumph. All the tribes voluntarily came forward to embrace Islam. But the case of the tribes of the Hawazin and Thaqif was the contrary. These tribes were very warlike and skilled in the art of war. The greater the dominance of the Islam, the more aggrieved they felt at the diminishing of their authority and privilege. After the victory of Makkah, the tribe of the Hawazin and their allies believed that it was now their turn. So they held a council and resolved to attack the Muslim forces now gathered in Makkah. Pursuant to this resolve, these tribes marched forward to attack the Makkah with great enthusiasm. So zealous were they in their cause that every tribe had brought along their women and children also. The objective was that men would be even more willingly to lay down their lives in defense of their women and children. All the clans of Hawazin and Thaqib participated in this exploit, save Ka'b and Kalab, who had refused to join. So these were and other tribes, they refused to join. The names were Ka'b and Kalab. Malik bin Auf, who was the commander of this army, took with him for consultation in the field a famous poet, general, and chief of the tribe of Jasam Durid bin Sama. His achievements in poetry and gallantry are still part of the history. He was very wise and brave. He was a centenarian at that time and had been reduced by age to skeleton. However, since Arabia acknowledged his military skill and everyone relied upon his judgment, the army on its march bore him along on a couch. "What is this place?" he inquired. "Otas," said the people. "Yes," he said, "it is a suitable place for combat. The land here is neither hard nor so soft that the feet might sink in it." He then asked, "How come that I hear the cries of the children?" Malik bin Auf informed him, "We have brought these children, women, and aged with us so that the men may fight with zeal and ward off defeat." Durid said, "When the feet are dislodged, nothing can stop the feet. Only sabres and spears are serviceable in war. If unfortunately we suffer defeat, our humiliation on account of the woman would be greater, for our vanquished army loses everything it has. Are Kaab and Kalab with the army? He further asked. On learning that no man of these eminent tribes had come to the battlefield, he remarked, if it had been a day of honor and dignity, Kalab and Kalab would not have absented themselves. Durid urged Malik not to lead the Hawazin to destruction. Lodge the women and children in a safe place, he said. In case of the victory, they will all join you, and if defeat falls to our lot, they will be safe. Malik bin Auf, a 30-year-old proud and headstrong young man, had ambitions not only to be the head of the Hawazin and Thaqif, but also to become the king of the whole Arabia. His reaction to the defeat of the Quraysh was peculiar. He thought, Medina, a small city, had defeated the Quraysh, but I am a chief of a great tribe. If I defeat the victor of the Arabia, I can become the king of the whole Arabia. It was this notion which had prompted him to take children, women, flocks of the animals, and other property along with the army to the battlefield, so that his army should not take to flight but fight on to the last. He turned a deaf ear to the sage advice of the veteran like Durid bin Sama. He conceived himself wiser than Durid. He wished to hear his people acclaiming him as a young and powerful chief. Sensing that everything was going contrary to his lifelong experience, Durid assumed silence. The Hawazin had no match in archery in the whole of the Arabia. Not a single arrow shot by them missed at the mark in the battlefield. The pagans arrived in the valley of the Hunain first and occupied all the strategic points. They had posted contingents of the archers in the gorges, corners, and passes all over the valley. When the Allah's Prophet ﷺ received intelligence of these events in the Makkah, he ﷺ dispatched Abdullah bin Ibi Jadrad to Hunain as a spy. He lived among the enemy forces for several days and made all the necessary investigations. The Prophet ﷺ was then constrained to prepare for a battle. A loan of 30,000 dirhams to buy equipment of the war was raised from Abdullah bin Rabia, an exceedingly wealthy man. From Safwan bin Umayyah, a chief of Makkah, who was still an unbeliever, the Prophet ﷺ borrowed 100 coats of mail and accessories. Safwan was at that time a weak suppliant and had no capacity to impose conditions on the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ demanded armament from him, he said, O Muhammad ﷺ, do you wish to take these armaments by force? Prophet ﷺ said, no, we want to borrow it with the guarantee that we shall return it to you. In Shawwal 8 Hijri, when the preparations were complete, the Muslims marched under the supreme command of the Prophet ﷺ towards Hunain. This was a larger army than had ever set out before. Its objective was to forestall an attack on Makkah by the tribe of the Hawazin and their allies. The strength of the Muslim army was 12,000 combatants. Of them, 10,000 were the Muhajirin, Mujahideen, who had accompanied the Holy Prophet ﷺ from Medina, and 2,000 soldiers who had embraced Islam after the conquest of Mecca. The army contained the truly loyal believers who had sold themselves to Allah, body and soul, for the supremacy of His religion. There were some of the troops whose faith in religion was still weak. There were some hypocrites who lacked political power and had professed faith in Islam due to fear. They nursed in their hearts hatred against Islam and were deeply grieved at the dominance of Islam. The vital strength of the army was not uniform in all its units. Never before had Arabia seen an army so huge as this. Every tribal contingent was marching under his own flag. Each soldier was so proud of the superior number of the army that soldiers even said to each other, "Who can defeat this army today?" But the Almighty disapproved of this pride. And on the day of the Hunain, when ye exulted in your multitude, but it availed you not, and the earth, vast as it is, was straitened for you, then ye turned back in the flight. Then Allah sent His peace of reassurance down upon His messenger and upon the believers, and sent down hosts ye could not see, and punished those who disbelieved. Such is the reward of disbelievers. The strategic points of the field had already been occupied by the pagans. The Muslims were completely unaware of the ambush laid by the enemy. The vanguard, commanded by the Khalid bin Walid, consists of mostly of the youths converted to Islam after the conquest of the Mecca. In the pride of their youth, they had dispensed with the coats of mail. Some of them were still unbelievers. The army of Islam impetuously attacked in the small hours of the morning. The Muslim army was in the lowermost part of the battlefield when the thousand of the archers fired volleys of the arrows from the upper level. Muslims' contingent were scattered, helter-skelter. At the very first stage of the war, the enemy had assailed them from the ambush, which threw the Muslims' ranks into confusion, and they were dispersed. Some troops fled. Commenting on their loss of courage, Abu Sufyan said, "Their speed indicates that they will not stop this side of the sea." One soldier of the Islamic army, Sheba bin Usman, whose father had been slain in the Battle of the Uhud by the Muslims, could not help saying, "Today I shall also revenge my father's blood on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam." So some hypocrites, some weak faith Muslims were also there with the Muslims. Another soldier of the Islamic army, Kula bin Jumbal, uttered, "The magic is over today." Abbas had a very loud voice. The Prophet ﷺ ordered him to call out the Muhajirin and the Ansar. He therefore started calling, "O the party of the Ansar, O Ashab al-Shajrata, the people of the pledge of the Rizwan." The companions answered, "We are here, we are here." Since the army had been thrown into disorder, and a soldier who wished to turn his horse was unable to do so, he took off his coat of mail and threw it round the neck of his horse. Then he would take his sword and shield, and sheltering behind his animal, he would attack the enemy and clear his way in the bid to advance towards the summoning voice till he reached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this way, 100 companions rallied round the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Many of them cast away their coats of mail and dismounted. Suddenly, the fortunes of war changed. The unbelievers fled. The Muslims gained complete victory. The enemy left behind their women and children and enormous flocks of the sheep and goats. In this battle, the Muslims' army took 6,000 prisoners of war, 24,000 camels, and 40,000 goats. So this was the topic, students. Make your notes. Thank you so much.